Hello, my name is Rick Hernandez, and I'm from Nevada County Cooperative Extension, and I am for the soils because it is the foundation of all our fruits and vegetables.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of For the Soil, a Conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii, joined by my co-host, Eric Benfelt with Virginia Cooperative Extension Community Viability, and Mary Sketch Bryant with the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Guys, I'm excited about this episode because we're going to be talking with someone, I guess you would say a non-traditional guest on the podcast. He is joining us from the campus of Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, but he is not a native of Blacksburg or even the Commonwealth of Virginia. Eric Benfelt, would you do the introduction, please?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. We're very pleased to have Kasper Krabbe join us. Kasper is a doctoral student and doctoral candidate at Aarhus University in Denmark. And last fall or during the winter, he had reached out to Virginia Tech and specifically the Center for Food Systems and Community Transformation. And he is very much interested in some of the work that we've been doing around soil health, human values, and thinking a little bit more about the ecological and ecosystem. And he's been doing a little bit of learning more about Virginia agriculture as well as talking with farmers. So we're very pleased to have Kasper with us. And Kasper, if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your interest specifically in soil health.
So thank you very much, both Eric, Jeff, and Mary, and thanks for having me on the podcast. And yeah, you're absolutely right about everything you say, that I'm here for a little bit more than 3 months in Virginia at Virginia Tech. And the reason for that is that I'm a doctoral student, as was also mentioned, over in Aarhus University in Denmark. And when you're a PhD student in Denmark, you have to go for at least 3 months to a different location for something that's called a change of environment. And this is sort of to get an idea about the particularities of your own research practice by going somewhere else and maybe rethinking about that, get some inspiration, and maybe, if you're lucky and clever enough, maybe inspire other people as well a little bit. And yeah, that's it. And my PhD is as mentioned in sort of the realm of agroecology, but I'm trained as a cultural anthropologist, so I'm sort of a social scientist, sort of sneaking around within and among soil scientists and those that have much more of a strict agronomy background, to sort of see if I can offer any perspectives that might be of interest to the overall progress of this research field. Thank you.
Well, Kasper, it's a real pleasure to welcome you to the podcast. And I think for our listeners who are not familiar with agriculture in the location that you grew up in Denmark, give us the kind of the big picture look of agriculture in your nation and also sustainable agriculture.
Yes, so I'm not coming here as sort of a man of the future telling you guys how to do it, because we certainly do have a lot of let's say, yeah, unlucky premises going on at the moment. It's throughout history, it's been a sort of large industrial agricultural country. It's the most southern of the Scandinavian countries in Northern Europe, and it's maybe one of the flattest country in Europe, making it very convenient to sort of do agriculture. So it's been, for many years now, it's been a really intensive pig farming industrial country, which now shows to have a lot of impact on different ecosystems and sort of the ecological status of fjords and rivers and so on. So yeah, in short, it's a very industrial pig farming country that is now starting to realize that we must go in different directions to somehow have a nature and an ecological system around us that we can live in for the future.
Well, I'm glad you brought up pig farming because I've always loved Danish ham. And the only thing I like better is Virginia ham.
What's the
Mary, I
difference,
believe
Jeff?
you had a question.
Well, first, just wanted to say, great to be with another social scientist masquerading around with soil scientists, because I am very much in that same boat. But you say that you talk about Denmark having an industrial agriculture past. If I believe a lot of your research in Denmark now works with different business models, CSAs and other approaches. Are you seeing that growing? And then, where's that intersection with soil health with those different business models?
Yeah, thank you for the good question, and apparently you have done a bit of a background dig on me, and you're absolutely right that even though it's a very traditionally intensive agricultural country, as I mentioned, there are sort of new movements coming along with CSAs growing in size, and sort of the regenerative movement that has been around in the US for many years is starting sort of to to have a bit of tailwind over in Denmark. And as a part of my research and this whole European research project that I'm sort of representing and funded by, called Soil Values, is sort of to follow and assess those farming initiatives that are much more soil healthy in their nature, and sort of, as I said, assess and see how they do in terms of their economy, and how it is very difficult for them to sort of design business models that both on one side, take into consideration the ecosystem ideals that are usually associated with, let's say, the organic or the regenerative movement, but still having to sort of design a model that is reasonable for them to have a proper living from it. So I follow some smallholder CSA farms in Denmark and sort of see if they can somehow manage to become a part of the overall food system in a long-term manner. It is, however, difficult in a country like Denmark that has such a strong, let's say, history of supermarket change offering, let's say, actually quite good products, also integrating the whole organic sector it really had a good pioneering ground in our country. So since the 80s, maybe between 3 and 5% of all produce in supermarket has been organic. And consumers have really always opted for the supermarket option if they wanted to go for something that they sort of considered healthy foods. So for different historical reasons, and the supermarket tradition, one of them, sort of farmers markets and so on during the weekends, it's really not something that happens a lot.
And,
Yeah.
and Casper, for those people that might not be familiar with community supported agriculture, a CSA, what does it look like in Denmark, and how do the farmers and the people that support the community supported agriculture, how does that work in Denmark?
Of course, there are different models, but I can maybe let you in on one of the farms that I've been following the closest throughout the past 2, 3 years. It's a farm of, I don't know how many acres, but maybe it's 20 hectares. And it's a primarily vegetable producing small farm where the sort of ideal behind the initiative is to have a very close connection to its customers, in the sense that the customers, they are allowed to sort of come onto the farm at any time they'd like, and then do some of the harvesting of the vegetables themselves.
We're talking today with Kasper Krabbe. He is a native of Denmark and a PhD student at Aarhus University in Denmark. He is studying in the Department of Agroecology on agricultural systems and sustainability. Let's talk about sustainability for a moment. When it comes to soil health, Kasper, how can farmers be more sustainable in their everyday practices?
Well, I think there would be other persons that maybe might give more strict answers and sort of direct answers to that. But me, since I wouldn't say I'm not interested in sort of making packages of certain practices that would be reasonable for all farmers to adopt. I wouldn't be a person to sort of make that presentation, but I can say that I follow people that are interested in promoting and let's say different soil health parameters. So whether they be beginning no-till farmers or they are sort of adopting a broad array of different regenerative practices being cover crops and no-till and sort of a lot of different composting practices. I think that is all very fine. But what is very interesting to me, at least, is how sort of these farmers that are involved in this, how they get their ideas about what they consider to be sustainable, and how they sort of try to adopt those practices into their business model. And that is maybe a little bit along the lines of what I am doing while being here in Virginia, but maybe we can get back to that. And please ask questions if I'm being unclear. I can be struggling sometimes to find the right word. Yeah.
Well, in Casper, I really want to dive into that soil values idea. And I'm hoping actually you'll stick around for a second episode because I don't know if we have the time left in this episode to really dive into that. Like I'd like to, because I think the concept is so important when we're thinking about the longevity of soil practices on the ground. But to take kind of that step back and think about mindsets and terminology and approaches, I believe you're in the Center for Agroecology. And that's a term that I think I've always kind of struggled to understand, like, what does it exactly mean? We have regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, um, conservation practices. What do you understand agroecology as? And it can be a mindset that you see it as or actual practices.
Again, I'm trying not to go out on a limb here, but I can at least give you my perspective on that. It is definitely something that is different from sort of context to context. Coming from a very northern European country, when you say agroecology, it's usually something that is the questions related to that are about, let's say, nutrient balances and sort of a statewide ways of thinking about ecological uh, natural balances and how we can sort of integrate that in a much more intensive manner and take it much more seriously. Whereas in other contexts, I'm not an expert on this field, but it has become very clear to me these past few years that in other contexts, agroecology is a term that has much more inspirations from, let's say, Latin American contexts, and the term sort of has associations and connotations much more towards food justice and sort of social imbalances. So what agroecology is that there are certain theorists, right, that have made sort of overarching theories on what everything, what agroecology sort of should entail. But then in sort of the practical different contexts around the world, some of those different parameters or parts of the overall theory have sort of had more emphasis than others. So again, it sort of depends on the context and the regions, but on a personal level, I of course think that all of those different parameters should be equally considered when you try to promote certain agroecological programs.
And Casper, as a relatively young researcher, I'd be interested in how you came to your vision and interest to explore sort of the anthropological or the social aspect of how farmers understand what they're doing, and who inspired you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always been very interested in, let's say, sort of the decision-making dynamics between among those sort of among people that have sort of old-fashioned jobs in the sense that they've been around for thousands of years, such as fishing or agriculture, and how they sort of take decisions throughout history and in contemporary times, where sort of the premises and sort of the context on which they take decisions, both financially, socially, and everything is constantly evolving. And I just think it's very interesting to sort of follow and assess that decision making and get an idea about sort of how they envision certain things, whether it be reasonable ways to do their family life in relation to the farming, but also maybe in relation to what we do while being here in Virginia, how those farmers, when they close their eyes, based on their training and their sort of personal sources of inspiration, how do they envision the soil looks like? Because if you walk on a field, right, there is such a massive amount of different functions and dynamics and components working below your feet. But it's, even though it's there and it's almost everywhere, it's hard for you to actually get grasp on those dynamics. And for me, it's very interesting to sort of dig into the thinkings and ideas of those farmers to get an idea about, as I said, when they close their eyes, what do they sort of envision happens under the soil? And most importantly, how does that influence their decision making when it comes to doing certain practices? So returning to soil health. So how can we as an sort of an overall society, and if we agree that we want to promote and support soil health and sort of a thriving ecosystem in the future, is there ways of us maybe understanding sort of the decision-making dynamics and the whole sort of perception process of farmers when they sort of take decisions on their management practices that would help us engage with them in a more clever manner and have more reasonable discussions with them to be less and be more constructive in our talks with each other. Yeah.
Very well said. We've been having a conversation today with Kasper Krabbe. He is a native of Denmark, and he is a doctoral student at Aarhus University in Denmark. He is doing his doctoral studies at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, and therefore he is in Virginia, and we're visiting with him. And Kasper, I hope that you'll have time to stick around for another episode.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. We look forward to continuing the conversation. You've been listening to For the Soil, a conversation. Eric and Mary will catch you in the next one.
Thanks, Jeff and Kasper.
Yeah. Yes, thank you all.
And on occasion, we do like to remind our listeners of the 4 core principles of soil health. Number 1, keep soil covered. Number 2, minimize soil disturbance. Number 3, maximize living roots. And number 4, energize with diversity. You can learn more, take a deep dive into soil health at our website, forthesoil.org. That is the digit forthesoil.org. For the Soil, a conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org. If you should have a specific question about soil health, call your local extension office, your local USDA service center, or a Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was provided courtesy of the Flip Charts, all rights reserved. For the Soil, a conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii.